Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this presentation on Portfolio Maestro. My name is Fred Palmliden, and I work for TradeStation Labs as a senior quantitative analyst, and I will be your host and presenter today. So before we get started, let me cover a few things here. First, let me get you familiarized with the broadcasting tool. As you may have already noticed, you can submit comments or questions in the chat area in the lower portion of the screen. Now, the chat is not privatized, meaning that everyone in attendance will be able to see your questions or comments. If you do submit a question, please be patient with me. I will probably wait to the end of the presentation to answer in order not to disturb the flow of the presentation. Also, today's presentation will be archived and available for you on the TradeStation website. It may take a few days before the archive is actually posted. Now, if you have trouble viewing this presentation, or if you have problems with the sound, well, you can click on the blue X that's going to be on the top right corner of your screen. And that's going to help you to reload the conference room in your browser. Also, if you get disconnected, don't panic, just log on again and you should be able to join the room. Now let's get some legal matters out of the way. This following presentation is for educational purposes only, which means that all symbols and trading ideas discussed are for demonstration purposes only and are not recommendations. Also, active trading is not suitable for everyone. So please read the disclosure information in the PDF handout, which is available in the Documents folder in the bottom right of your viewer or on the TradeStation website. Now, in the same Documents folder, you'll be able to find information regarding upcoming events, such as the Forex in Focus event on Monday and the Morning Market Briefing series. And let me actually go ahead here and push some of those different links into the general chat window. There they are. So what is Portfolio Maestro? Well, it's a tool that provides the ability to test trading strategies on portfolios and view the portfolio testing results. So as most of you know, if you perform a backtest in TradeStation, you are limited to testing one symbol at a time. So that's really the beauty of Portfolio Maestro, that you can test multiple symbols at the same time. So this presentation is going to be the first of a new series of presentations on Portfolio Maestro. Each presentation will be centered around a white paper describing different features of a program. And you can find the first white paper in the Documents folder. And I'm going to go ahead and push it into the general chat window. Also, the goal of this presentation is really to give you a broad overview of Portfolio Maestro. After this presentation, you should be able to go back and do a basic portfolio backtest and understand the core functionality of a product. Now, one thing you need to know is that Portfolio Maestro is not fully integrated yet with the TradeStation platform. Eventually, you'll be able to access Portfolio Maestro directly from the TradeStation platform, but right now that's not the case. What you need to do to access Portfolio Maestro is first, you need to go to the TradeStation website and you need to click on the Client Center. That's going to be the button that you see on the top right portion of the website. After you log in, you'll need to go into your customer profile. And if you click on Add Remove Data Features on the left side, you'll have access to the option of selecting TradeStation Portfolio Maestro. After you do that, you'll need to go to the Download Software page, and you can click on this Download Software tab on the top portion of your screen, and you'll be able to see Portfolio Maestro listed on the left navigation, and that will allow you to download Portfolio Maestro onto your machine. Once you open up Portfolio Maestro, this is what it looks like. So it may look a little bit intimidating at first, a little bit scary maybe. So let me start by going through some basic geography here and some basic terminology that's associated with Portfolio Maestro. So let's first talk about the geography, the general layout of Portfolio Maestro. Well, it's actually not that different from the TradeStation platform. You have a shortcut menu bar that you notice on the left side of your screen with different icons that you can click on to navigate to different parts of Portfolio Maestro. You also have a top menu bar. It's pretty standard. The middle portion of your screen here, the biggest part of the screen that you look at, that's going to be the contents panel. So that's where all the different details, all the different options that you have access to in Portfolio Maestro, that's where they're going to be listed. One thing that's a little bit different here from the TradeStation platform is that you have a selections panel on the lower side of your screen. So after you create different portfolios, or after you run different backtests, well, that's where those different portfolios or backtests or strategy groups, that's where they're going to be listed, which makes it very convenient to just click on one and jump to another and see what differences it made. If you tweak something in a strategy and you want to compare one strategy to another, it makes it very convenient to do that. So that's the selections panel. Now, we need to talk a little bit about the terminology that's associated with Portfolio Maestro. Now, we have a few terms that we need to be familiar with in order to understand really the functionality. Okay, so the first term I want you to be familiar with is the term strategy group. Okay, and when you hear those words, what I would like you to do is associate those words with having at least one strategy on at least one symbol. Okay, so every time you hear me say strategy group, you need to think for yourself at least one strategy on at least one symbol. All right, that's simple enough. Now, the next term I want to present is portfolio. All right, so in the context of Portfolio Maestro, when you hear the term portfolio, what you need to associate with is having at least one strategy group. Okay, so when you hear portfolio, think about having at least one strategy group. When you hear strategy group, you need to think to yourself about having at least one strategy on at least one symbol. So maybe by now you have a little bit of a concept of hierarchy here in Portfolio Maestro. You have a portfolio on the very top, which is made up of different, at least one strategy group, and each strategy group is made up of at least one strategy on at least one symbol. All right. So I think really the best way to understand Portfolio Maestro is just to go ahead and go through an example, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. Let's go through an example from start to finish, as far as how do you go about creating a portfolio and perform a backtest. So the very first thing we need to do is to create a strategy group. So can somebody remind me what a strategy group is? See if somebody can type it in the general chat window. What do you need to associate those words with? Let's see, John is typing here. Let's see if he can get it right. So when you hear strategy group, you need to think of what? Let's see, there are a few of you typing. Let's see if somebody can get it. That's right, Carl. Carl wins. When you hear strategy group, you need to think about at least one strategy with at least one symbol. All right. So to create a strategy group, it's very straightforward. You just click on the Manage Strategy Group icon on the left side. Okay. And to create our first new strategy group, I'm going to click on New on the top left corner. Okay. And that's going to enable me to name my first strategy group. So here I'm going to call it Maestro Demo, and I'm going to click OK. All right, so notice that my strategy group is listed now in my selections panel on the lower side of your screen. So now we just created a strategy group, but it's really a shell, right? There's nothing in it right now. And remember, the strategy group again is at least one strategy on at least one symbol. So what we need to do first is add at least one strategy. And you can do so by clicking on the Add Strategy button that you see on the top left side of your screen. And here you'll have access to all the different strategies that you already have access to in the TradeStation platform. So here you can see there are a lot of custom strategies here in this particular list that I have. So I'm going to keep it just really simple for now, and I'm going to click on the Bollinger Bands. And in order to run the strategy on the long and short side, I'm going to click on both components. I'm going to click on the Bollinger Bands LE for long entry and the SE for short entry. That way we can go long and short. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now we can see our two strategy components in our strategy group. Okay. Notice that you have a little plus sign next to the name. If you click on that plus sign, that's going to expand that area, and you can see a little bit more details about those particular strategy components. So here we have the default values that are going to be used for a strategy. It's going to use a length of 20 bars, and it's going to use 2 standard deviations. All right, so now we have our strategy. The next thing we need to think about is having at least one symbol to test the strategy on, right? And in order to add symbols to my strategy group, I just need to click on the symbol lists tab on the top portion of your screen. And now I just need to click on Add Symbol List. And here you have different options. If you have a custom list that a list of your favorite symbols, you can import that into your strategy group. For now, what I'm going to do is just use the index components of a Dow Jones Transportation Index. So I'm going to have 20 different symbols. I'm going to click on OK. All right. So you can see the name of the index on the top portion of your screen. If I click on the plus sign next to it, then I can see all the different names of the different firms that are within the Dow Jones Transportation Index. So at this point, we're actually just created our first strategy group. We have at least one strategy and at least one symbol, right? So, and that's really all there is to it as far as creating the strategy group. You also have really a collection of options here that are available to you, and I'm just going to mention them. I'm not going to go into them right now because I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible. And we'll have future presentations on some of these more advanced features. So let me just mention them right here. One thing that you have available to you is this ranking feature. So right now we're just going to keep it blank, but you have a long list of different ranking techniques that you can use. So, and these come really handy to filter the amount of trades that you have. So right now we only have 20 symbols, so we're going to be pretty limited as far as the number of trades. But let's say you had the S&P 500 in here, then you may have a limited amount of capital like most of us do, and you may not want to take all trades. And so you can use this ranking feature to filter the amount of trades that you take. And the second presentation we'll have will actually almost be completely based on this ranking functionality. If you click on the Strategy tab, one more thing I want to point out here is that you have access to money management techniques too. For each of these strategy components, if you click on one and click on Strategy Settings in the middle portion of your screen, that will open up a new window with 3 different tabs. And notice here that the last tab is the Money Management tab. And here you have a collection of money management techniques. And I'm not going to go into them in detail here, but it's really mostly to scale into positions, versus just versus just buying, say, 100 shares at a time and be done. So here with money management techniques, you can scale into positions, buy, so many shares at a time. If you need to change your inputs in your strategy, you would want to use this Strategy Inputs tab in the Strategy Settings window. So by default, the length of the Bollinger Band that's going to be used is 20. But let's say you want to use 25 instead. Well, all you'll need to do is just click on that number, and using your keyboard, just type in 25 and click OK. All right, simple enough. So we just created our first strategy group, right? So, but we're not ready to backtest this strategy group yet, are we? Because we need to insert this strategy group into a portfolio, because the portfolio is what is going to be backtested. So in order for us to create a new portfolio, we need to click on the Manage Portfolio icon on the left side of your screen. All right. I'm going to click on New on the top left. That's going to let me name my first portfolio. So here I'm going to type in Maestro Portfolio Demo and click OK. All right. So notice that just like in the beginning of our strategy group process, here we have a new portfolio, but it's really just a shell again. There's nothing in it, right? So what do we need to do? Can somebody remind me about what a portfolio is? Remember, when you hear portfolio, you need to associate it with what? At least one symbol? No. At least one strategy? No. What was it? That's right. At least one strategy group. That's right. Z got it right. Thank you. So let's add our new strategy group to this new portfolio. And to do that, I just need to click on Add Strategy Group on the top left. Click on my Maestro Demo Strategy Group. So, right now I only have one to choose from, right? But after some time, you may have a collection of strategy groups that you can use. So for this particular example, I'm just going to use the one that I created. And click OK. So now we have our strategy group within our new portfolio. And you can see the different strategy components listed here in front of you. So it's a nice little reminder about what the settings are for your strategy components within the strategy group, which is now part of your new portfolio. All right. So now we are almost ready to backtest our portfolio. But one thing I want to do first is just mention a few advanced features that you have access to. I'm not going to go into them. I just want to mention them for you. And I'm going to click on this portfolio settings button on the middle portion of your screen. All right. And I just want to point out very quickly that you have access here to constraints for your portfolio. So let's say you want to have a maximum number of open positions at any one given time. All right. So this is where you would set that up. You would use a constraint on your overall portfolio. And you have a collection of different constraints that you can choose from. You can also set up stops and targets, and you can specify your currency. I'm going to go ahead and leave all those with their default values. I'm not going to go into them, and we'll leave that for another presentation. Okay, so here we have our Maestro demo portfolio, which includes our strategy group that we created, which means that we are ready for the backtest. And to backtest, it's very straightforward. You just need to click on the backtest portfolio button on the top right side of your screen. All right, I'm going to do that now. Notice here that you have a series of different tabs available to you. The settings tab is really going to be the most important one for you. Here you get to choose if you want to use a standard backtest, or if you want to use, if you want to perform an optimization backtest, or if you want to do walk forward, and those are more advanced features that we'll get into in a later presentation. You can specify your initial capital, and you can also specify how far back you want to go in your backtest. So by default, it's just going to go back 1 year, and I'm going to keep it that way. In the cost and quantity tab, you can specify how many shares you want to buy for each position. All right, so by default, it's going to buy 100 shares for each symbol. And for futures, it's just going to be one contract, and you can also specify the size for Forex. So right now, we're mostly interested in equities because we are backtesting our strategy on the Dow Jones Transportation Index. Notice also that you can specify commissions and slippage. Next, in the strategy inputs, there you get a snapshot of your settings for your different strategy components. And you also have a symbols tab, which is pretty neat here, because one of the things you can do is exclude a particular symbol. All right, so let's say for some reason, I do not want to trade ALK within the Dow Jones Transportation Index, but I want to trade everything else. I could just click on exclude on next to the symbol, and that would remove that symbol from the list of securities that are available in my backtest. All right, so we specified the range. We're going back 1 year. We're going to do a standard backtest. So I'm going to now perform the backtest by clicking on perform backtest, as the name implies. All right, so this will just take a few moments to run. It's going through every symbol in my symbol list. So once the backtest is done, you have the option to view the report right away, or you can view it later. So now I'm going to just click on View Now, and that will take me into the Strategy Performance Report. So notice that if you've ever done a backtest in portfolio in the TradeStation platform, well, this is going to look very similar to you. You have multiple tabs. You have a summary tab, which will give you a basic overview of your of your performance for all symbols. What's going to be very different now, though, is that you can go into the trades list and you can see all the different trades that were performed for the last 12 months. And notice now that you have multiple symbols, right? In TradeStation, you would only have the same symbol throughout the backtest. But now with symbols, we have multiple long entries and short entries. So you can use this tab to see all of those individual trades. You can also go into the trade analysis window. And one that's very popular is the graphs tab. So you can look into your equity curve. So in this particular case, the strategy did fairly well for a while. We're, I guess, up almost 6%, and then it gave it all back. And we're now, I guess it made up a little bit of the losses, but overall the strategy lost money for the last year. And you can see a summary of your settings for the strategy group in your portfolio using the settings tab. Now, one thing I want to show you here is the orders report. Okay, so notice in your shortcut menu bar you have multiple icons. We just talked about the performance report, but notice that you have an orders report. That's going to be the next to last one. If I click on it and click on the positions tab, I can see all the different positions that I would currently hold if I were to employ this particular strategy. So this is basically your bridge between the theoretical backtest and what you would be doing today, what positions you would be holding today, which is a pretty nice feature as far as making that connection between the backtest and real-time trading. So if you had any open orders currently, they would be listed in this tab. Here we have one actually. If we have filled orders, they would be here, and canceled orders would be in this tab. All right, so guess what? We just went through from scratch, from start to finish. We just performed a portfolio backtest. So hopefully this makes a lot of sense for you. And this presentation will be archived and available for you, so you can go back and review any portions that were not quite clear. And don't forget about the white paper that you have access to, and this presentation is really built around that white paper. All the things that we talked about here today are going to be shown in details in the white paper. So let me now go back into the general chat window, and I'm going to see if you have any questions for me. So you comment here from Z that we need more presentations. So you're in luck. This is just the first presentation of a series of presentations. So this is really just an overview to get you started. The next presentations will be centered around more advanced features. The second presentation that we'll have will be centered around ranking techniques and money management. So you can look forward to that. It's going to be sometime in June. Let's see here. Can I use one strategy across the board for one portfolio of currencies and one portfolio of futures? All right. So if you're going to be using the same strategy across all your different symbols, you don't really need two portfolios, right? If you remember our terminology, a strategy group is made up of at least one strategy with at least one symbol, and then the portfolio is just made up of at least one strategy group. So what you could do is create a custom list with your favorite currencies and your favorite futures. And if we go back into our strategy group, if we go in here, we could add that custom list into your strategy group, and that would be really the easy way to perform that task. All right, so let me scroll up and see some earlier questions that came in. So give me a few moments here to review those questions. So I see a question here about costs. So if you do not meet the minimum criteria, namely if you are currently paying for the TradeStation platform, if you're paying the $299 fee, that means that you will be paying $59.95 extra in order to access Portfolio Maestro. If you do meet that trading criteria, then Portfolio Maestro is free, as far as I understand. You just need to go to the Client Center in the TradeStation website and follow those steps that we did in the very beginning of the presentation to download Portfolio Maestro on your computer. And I think one thing I did not mention is that once you download Portfolio Maestro, what will happen is you'll have an icon directly on your desktop, and that's how you will, what you'll need to use in order to open up the product. You'll not see Portfolio Maestro listed anywhere within the TradeStation website, within the TradeStation platform. Eventually it will be, hopefully, where it's fully integrated, but right now you have to use this icon on your desktop. I have a question here from Giuseppe about updates to Portfolio Maestro. Those are in the pipeline, and so you can look for that in the near future. We are constantly, just like with the TradeStation platform, we're constantly looking at improvements. Good question here from Shirish. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Can you apply different strategies to different symbols and then run all of them in Maestro? And the answer is yes, you can. You can make this as complicated as you want. In our example, it was a very basic and simple example. We just had one strategy on the list of symbols. If we go back into our strategy group here, but that's a bare minimum, right? You could have multiple strategies on the same list of symbols. You could also have different strategy groups, each one with its own set of symbols, using its own set of strategies, which means that then your portfolio would be made up of multiple strategy groups, and each strategy group would be running multiple strategies on different symbols. And so you can make this as complex as you want. So a question here about Forex. You can use Portfolio Maestro for equities, for futures, and Forex. You can trade all of those asset classes. So I see a few questions here about some of the more advanced features like money management. So just to keep us on target here, I'm not going to address those right now. They will be addressed in the near future with our next presentation and our next white paper. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is, if you have specific questions, I'm going to give you an email that you can use. So a question here from Timothy about the strategies, if they are available for testing and if they are free. All the different supplied strategies that you have access to in the TradeStation platform will be available in Portfolio Maestro. A few questions here about documentations. So don't forget about the white paper that this presentation is centered around. And I'm going to go ahead and push it through again into the general chat window. And Angelos is asking about the mechanics of portfolio constraints. And that's also going to be a subject of a later presentation. That's going to be, I believe, the third or fourth presentation that we'll have will be centered around portfolio constraints. So please be patient. And in the meantime, let me show you a few things that you can do to access some help. With Portfolio Maestro, you have really a series of resources available to you. If you click on Help on the top left corner, you can go to Portfolio Maestro Help. And this is opening up a separate browser for me, so I'm not going to be able to show it to you because it's using the broadcasting. It's tagged to the broadcasting tool. But anyway, you'll be able to navigate through the different topics and get a lot of resources at your fingertips that way. You also have access to different tutorials. Notice that you have a tutorial icon on the top portion of your screen, and that's going to help you to get started. And you can also always call TradeStation for help. You can use that email address that I sent to you in the general chat window, and you also have access to those white papers that I mentioned. And here in a few days, we'll have this video archived and available for you on the TradeStation website, and the PDF that's centered around this presentation will be attached to that video. So you'll be able to see it and download it right there as well. All right, so I think I went through pretty much all questions here. The next paper and presentation will be in the middle portion of June, and it's going to be centered around ranking and money management. So the third paper is going to be on constraints and portfolio targets and stops, and we'll also have a dedicated presentation on portfolio optimization. All right, well, I think I've covered all questions. So let me conclude this presentation and just thank you all so very much for joining me this afternoon about this overview of Portfolio Maestro. And you can mark your calendars for future Portfolio Maestro presentations. We're going to have a whole series of them, and all of these videos will be archived and available for you on the TradeStation website. One more thing before I go. Let me switch back to the slides, and I failed to mention here that you can take a quick event survey about this presentation. It'll just take you a few minutes, so I would appreciate if you do that. And also, if you do not have an account with TradeStation yet, you have a special opportunity here to trade free for 60 days if you open up a brokerage account with TradeStation. So thank you again, everyone. Have a great evening, and see you soon at another TradeStation event.